Hello everyone, in this video we are going to discuss about new project called ReleaseZri, and this project is about generating release notes automatically from a changelog file, and this is not about generating release notes from commit messages. Very first we are going to discuss about the problems with existing commit based release note generation project, and then we are going to discuss how ReleaseZri solves this problem simply by offering a simple strategy to generate release notes. Also, we are going to check who uses ReleaseZri. Currently, the neutral Neo.js project integrated ReleaseZri to generate release notes and releases automatically. Then after that, we are going to discuss about how you can customize or implement this ReleaseZri project into your project as well. Finally, we are going to check the use cases of this project, when you need to use, and in which project you can apply this ReleaseZri to generate release notes. So first we can check about the problems with commit based release note generation project. So if we check for an example this automatic release note generation in GitHub. So if I create a new tag for this draft release, and if I select target branch here, then if I click on this automatic release note generation action, then it will automatically generate a release note. So that is good, but the problem is that these commit messages doesn't give a full overview about this release. So it is not basically a summary of this release. So it is just about some bunch of like commit messages. So if, even though you write some meaningful commit messages here, that doesn't explain the full overview about this release. So the release note should be kind of simple and easy to explain for all developers. So it can be maybe a simple explanation about what is changed, not just about commit messages. So if you have a lot of commit messages created during your development of the project, then here you will get lot of commit messages, and it will complicate the release note for developers. Also, there is another problem regarding the automatic release note generation based on commit message. So that is about new contributors usually don't follow the commit convention. So they usually add some description, and they just contribute the project. So basically we cannot force contributors to follow a specific commit convention. So instead we were looking for some solution for this release note generation. So our requirement was to generate kind of a simple changelog here, that is kind of explaining full overview about the project, not just commit messages. So as a solution, initially we decided to create a changelog file and update it manually. So our requirement was to generate some kind of meaningful release note here, not just based on commit messages, but based on some kind of manual updates. So if we check this neutral Neo.js project, we created this changelog file, and we manually updated these things. So if we, for example, if we do some kind of change here, so we added the new heading here, then under that heading we created the changes basically. So these are grouped by some modules. So this os exec command is some kind of API module. So under that section we added some modifications, and also regarding extensions we added like this. So this is under the one release. So for example, if there are unreleased changes, so we added this unreleased heading, then under that we usually maintain this modification. So when we do a modification, we can do commits as you wish, number of commits as you wish. Then we are going to simply update this on its simple message. So these things are not automatically generated from commit messages. So we can later fix some things in these features also and keep this one as it is. So that's not depending on number of commits we do. So like I mentioned before, initially we maintained this one manually. Manually means when we are going to release a new version, assume that I am going to create version 4.1. So if this version will be 4.1, then I usually replace this unreleased thing into like v 4.10. Then I updated the release note by copying this one into the release note section. So that's how I did initially. So that's kind of a time consuming project. So if we have multiple projects, for example, we have neutral node.js also. This is the JavaScript client of neutral node.js project. So in here also we manage changelog, so here also we need to do that process manually. So that is kind of time consuming task, so that's why we introduce a new project called ReleaseZri. So this is basically generating releases and release notes automatically from this changelog file. So it offers a way to generate release notes, and it offers a way to update this section automatically, this unreleased section with the latest release. Now I can mention how we can do a release if you integrate ReleaseZri into your project. So if, for example, if I go to Newton.js project, so this is integrated with the ReleaseZri. So if it is integrated, you can see this folder .releaseZri. So I will explain further about these folders and files. So right now I am going to show you how I am going to do a release if the ReleaseZri thing is integrated with the repository. So first I am going to go to this action section. So this is the workflow for generating a release. So if I go ahead and click this one, then here I will get option to run this particular workflow. So this is about creating a release. So if I create a new release, so here I can mention the version number. It's basically providing a version number. Then if I provide the version number and click on this run workflow, it will automatically bring those changelog from that changelog file, and it will create a new release with those release notes, and finally it will update that changelog by mentioning the latest version. So that's the process behind the ReleaseZri. So maybe I can demonstrate by creating a new release. Here I am not going to create a release because this is the main repository. I am going to go to the fork version of this repository. So this is the forked version of that Newton.js project. So here I am going to demonstrate the ReleaseZri based releases. So if we check the changelog quickly, and if we check the things under unreleased, there is one change. So this change is about doing modification is this window module. Let's check what will happen if we are going to release a new version. Assume that next version is v4.1. So next I am going to go to this action section. Then I am going to click this create release workflow. Then now I am going to run the project. Here I can simply mention the version number, which is v1.0. Then if I run this workflow now, it will create a new workflow. So this is responsible for creating the release. So based on that ReleaseZri project, now we can see this workflow has been completed successfully. Then if we check each action, so this first one is about setting up the workflow executor. Then after that the repository is going to be pulled and downloaded. Then after that then it is going to create a release zip file based on the binary, so according to this project. So if you are managing different project, so that's about your release artifact. After that there's the kind of optional action to like push the release artifact into the repository also, but that is kind of optional. If you need, you can push into the repository also. So if we check this section, that is about creating release notes based on this ReleaseZri project. So if we expand it, we can see that the program automatically found the release note. So this thing was under that unreleased section. So those release note should go to this version which I added initially. So that is v4.10. So this program automatically found that the changelog belonged to that latest version. So after that then it is going to apply that release note into some kind of template. I will mention it further when I am going to explain further about ReleaseZri, how to integrate it into your project likewise. So basically here the release notes are generated based on a template by this ReleaseZri project. So this step is about committing the updated changelog. So in previous step, this release note generation step, so the release project updates your changelog and it replaces the unreleased text with the latest version, right? At this step, now the release project updated the changelog. Now in the next at this step, we are going to commit into the repository. In the next step, we are going to create a new branch for that particular release version. So later we are going to create a GitHub release. So this is using some kind of workflow actions, and using the workflow action we are going to create a new GitHub release. So when you are creating, we can provide that release notes generated by this ReleaseZri project. At this step it generates release notes into some kind of markdown file. So here we can use it when you are creating the release. We can use that the particular release note file generated by ReleaseZri project. So after using it we can clean the release notes, so basically by deleting that particular auto generated release note file. So that's how the basically the workflow works, and ReleaseZri works. First it is going to bring those release notes from changelog file, then it is going to update the changelog file. Finally it is going to create a new release based on changelog file. Now we can see what are the things happen in the repository. If we check the releases section, now we can see this version is released, right? So we can see those meaningful release notes here. So those are taken from the changelog file, and these things are coming from a template. I will mention it later. So we can define a template for this release note section. So if we check the latest commits, we can see a new commit. So that's about updating a changelog. So that is basically about replacing this unreleased thing with the new version number, right? Now you already know about ReleaseZri project basically. So now I am going to mention how you can configure it to your project. So I also mentioned who uses this ReleaseZri project. Like you already noticed, this Neutrinologist project uses ReleaseZri project in the main repository and also in other repositories as well. I recently added into this repository as well, this client library repository. So we are managing releases automatically, release notes automatically with this ReleaseZri project right now. So if we check the repository of this ReleaseZri project, this project is itself managed by ReleaseZri project. So if we check the releases, so these are done automatically by the ReleaseZri project itself. So these are coming from the ReleaseZri project. Now I can explain how you can integrate ReleaseZri into your project as well. So like you understood already, so this is about generating release notes some kind of in meaningful and easy way, right? So it's not just about generating release note from commit messages, because if we get release note from commit messages, so that is not giving some kind of a meaningful release notes at the end. It is just about basically some kind of commit messages, right? So this way offers you a way to generate release notes in some kind of a meaningful way. So if you would like to try ReleaseZri with your projects, you can check this documentation. It explains further about how you can integrate it. So basically there's some description you can see, some explanation about ReleaseZri. I already explained those things, why we are developing this ReleaseZri solution. So here are some highlighted features. Like I mentioned before, then you can generate release notes automatically from the changelog file with just one command, and especially you don't need to follow any kind of commit message format. The issue with the specific commit message format is that if you have a lot of contributors and new contributors, we cannot force those contributors to follow a specific commit format. So this solution is not depending on commits and commit messages. So you can use commit message format as you wish. So it is okay to use any kind of commit messages with this ReleaseZri project. Also, especially there are no strict rules for managing changelog. You can manage changelog as you wish, but the special thing is that you need to use that unreleased title when you are adding some unreleased changes, right? So this ReleaseZri script generate a markdown file with the old release notes. So that markdown file can be used anywhere within your continuous delivery platforms and with your local computer also. Now we can check how you can integrate ReleaseZri into your project. So the first step is to create a changelog file. If you don't have a changelog file, you can create a changelog file like this. The file name is changelog.md. So it is in the root folder of your repository. Here you can add any format, meaning that you can add any information here, but there is one rule, one is simple rule for this changelog. So the rule is that if we are going to add some unreleased changes, so assume that this section is not yet released, so you can add this kind of title, level 2 title with this hash in markdown, then you can put a space and enter unreleased. So you just need to mention like this, and you can add whatever the things you need here under this unreleased heading. So when you add changes, make sure to use some kind of lower heading than this one. So if this is like hash, you can add 3 hashes here, 4 hashes here, so on, likewise. So that's the only simple rule about this changelog. So you can add any kind of thing here. You can use any kind of formatting here, but you need to add this unreleased tag with this hash syntax. So that's about the changelog. You just need to maintain a simple changelog. So when you are doing some changes, assume that you implemented a new feature or maybe a breaking change, then you can simply mention here. There's no strict rule, but you can maintain some kind of a simple rule like this maybe. So under some kind of module you can mention some changes like that. So that's about the changelog format. So as the next step, you can create a release note template. So that release note template you need to create in this .ReleaseZri directory. So under this .ReleaseZri directly, you can create a template.md markdown file and add this release note format. So you can follow any kind of template, but there are some variables that you can use. Some kind of example template you can see here. So here I added some kind of title, then after that this variable is used. So this variable is about changelog. So the script is going to find the release notes automatically from changelog. So then it is going to apply those release notes here where you mention this kind of variable. So if you mention that variable here, the program will add the release notes here. Also there is another variable which is this RSZ version thing. So when you mention like this, so it will be replaced with the latest version. What you provide as the version will be added into here. So we will add different variables here. We are going to add some variables about date, release date maybe, likewise. So we are going to update these things. So if you need to see some kind of example template, you can see this ReleaseZri projects release note template. So that is in this .ReleaseZri directory, and inside this template.md. So this is the template of release notes in this ReleaseZri project. Let's check the next step. So in the next step, you can create this script, this release note generation script. We provide some kind of script to generate release notes automatically. So if we click here, it will direct to some kind of Python file. So this is about generating the release notes. So you can simply copy and paste this script into your project. So there's no strict place to add this script, but you can simply add into scripts directory. So that is kind of standard, I guess. So under this scripts directory, you can add this rs.py file. Now I can quickly mention what is inside this script. So there are two commands implemented here. So first thing is create command, and next thing is the cleanup command. So if you use this script with the create command and the version, so it is going to generate release note for the provided version. So if you are going to clean up this auto-generated files, you can use this cleanup command. So it will basically clean up the auto-generated release notes, right? There are basically two commands that you can use. So the next step is to update your DevOps workflow. In here I already explained about how to integrate with GitHub Actions, because in the Neutral Node.js project we use for GitHub Actions. So the first thing is to create some kind of workflow step to trigger that script. So here we can trigger like this the script file and the command like I mentioned before. Then here we can provide the version number. Here we are taking the version number from a kind of a GUI input. So if you go to this action section, so if we are going to trigger this workflow manually, here I need to provide the version number, right? So it is coming from there, that the GitHub GUI is going to send that version number into here, and we are going to capture it like that. But you can take this version number from a git tag as well. Next you can create another step. So that is to update this changelog. This changelog is automatically updated by that previous script, but now we are going to commit it, right? We are going to commit and push into the repository because that changelog is updated, right? Finally, you are going to create a release automatically with your artifact, the release artifact, and with the release notes. So here in our project we use this particular GitHub action, and it accepts several parameters. Here we can provide the git tag, then the that release name, and after that we can provide the release note file as well. Here we are going to provide the release note file which is generated by ReleaseZri project. So this ReleaseZri project generates release note in this particular markdown file. Right now we are going to provide into this automatic release generation section, right? Now the particular action accepts some other parameters like artifacts and whether it is draft or not, likewise. This is how you can integrate ReleaseZri into your projects. Finally, I am going to mention about some use cases, right? Like you already understood, this is a great way to generate release notes for open source projects that is hosted in GitHub. So that is the reason is that we can directly use GitHub Actions and copy paste these things. These steps you can just copy paste and add into your own GitHub Action workflows, right? So this ReleaseZri project is more suitable if you need to generate some meaningful change log messages. So if you are maintaining an open source project and if you need to generate some kind of meaningful change log messages for developers, you can definitely look into this ReleaseZri project and generate meaningful release notes. If you have some ideas about this project, you can just open a new issue here and let us know. Then we can work on it and improve this ReleaseZri project. So then see you in next video.